Well, it's such a joy to be talking to Oscar Chalupsky, world champion sportsman and cancer warrior. Well, at least that's what it says on the cover of his book. We'll find out more about that in a while. I bought his book some months ago, paid my 300 Rand. It's called No Retreat, No Surrender. Actually, it's just show it there. Okay, that's the book you got to go and get hold of. I never got around to reading it, though, until he gave me a nudge with a signed copy. That was in December, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Kicking myself for not reading it earlier and actually having this discussion with you earlier, Oscar, because according to some of your pals, you almost weren't here today. You almost never made it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alec. Lovely to speak to you. Yeah, no, it was. I was given a few last rites, and the doctor's telling me, no, this was only about 6 or 7 weeks ago. No, you must bring your family back. Things aren't going that well. But as you know me well enough, I didn't think that was right. So I said, no, I'm not bringing in my family here. I'm going to fight this, and you have to fight things with different methods. And one of the things I did, I went on a 21-day fast, so to kill the cancer.
Where did you learn about that or get that idea from?
Well, I've always been following nutrition since Tim Noakes did some studies with me in the 1980s on waterlogged when I won that race from Paulers to East London. I never drank any water for 5 hours, and they said, no, you should be dehydrated, and I wasn't. So, and I've always been interested. And again, understand that I won my last world title at age 49. Believe me, I can't even do one push-up or one sit-up as much as these young guys can do, and they can do thousands of pull-ups. I couldn't do anything, so I've got to use my brain. So, and I've really studied it. And I didn't just study books on nutrition. I studied people like Shackleton, who survived and things like that. And I read a lot of these kind of books that says, hey, no, your basal metabolic rate, it's going to affect your performance, because even if you take water, so your body's got to digest it, so it's going to take power from your muscles to digest the water. So these are these little fine things that make you win at a very ripe old age of 49. So that's what I've did in my cancer fight as well. I heard that when you have chemo, that you're going to get very sick. I said, hey, the only way you can get sick is if you've got food in your stomach. So I started this, and this is 4 years ago when I started my first cancer. When I had stage 4 the first time, I didn't eat for 3 or 4 days, and I never got sick. And at the time of my life, I used to have chemo and then came and people said, oh, is something wrong with you? I said, yeah, well, I've got this that is strong, and my brain's strong, and I do my own research, because I think that's something that people really need to do, is educate themselves. I mean, so many people just follow down the wrong, educate yourself and you make your own decision. And that's what I've done.
Tim Noakes, he's a very popular man in amongst the BizNews community. In fact, when he was at our last conference, and we got to get you to one of them soon, Oscar. He was one of our top. I think there were a couple of 100,000 people watched the recording of his keynote, and yet there are many who suddenly have found fault with him, including some corporates. You've worked with him for a long time. Has he lost the plot?
No, you see, at the end of the day, everybody has their sort of opinion on something, and some people disagree, and then you think, oh, everything's wrong about him, and I think that's what I've seen. I've been following Tim for a long time. We go back 40 years, and it's always, you think, okay, well, I know what he talked about, having a high-fat diet and low carb. And funny enough, this is an interesting story, and I've actually got the email when I wrote to Tim about 16 years ago, when I said, hey, I've heard this. My friend told me you should be eating fat and not carbohydrates. And lo and behold, about 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, he changed and said, hey, this is the elephant in the room. We shouldn't be having carb. We should be having fat. So understand this, that people go down that route, and some people, obviously his knowledge on nutrition is unmatched, I'd say, in South Africa. But there are people that still don't believe him, even though he won the court case and things like that. So, people, they waver, and his story on obviously the vaccine and things like that, he's got the science. I can't dispute that. So, and I'm not into disputing that. That's why I'm saying each to his own, and that's why you have people saying, no, he's believe in me. And I actually called him out on this, and you'll never forget, I was doing CrossFit of all things. I couldn't even do one push-up at the time. I just finished my transplant. And I said, Tim, the one thing you can't say is that this COVID virus is a nothing, because I'll ask you, have you ever seen every single ICU bed in the whole of South Africa full in your life? And he said, no. I said, well, that's my thing. So I actually said to her, I said, hey, you can't say it's nothing. There has to be something, whether it's COVID or something, but there's something happening. So it's interesting. It's good to argue, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They don't realize that it becomes an argument, not a discussion. And I think that's why some people have said, no, he's lost the plot, or he hasn't lost the plot. And I think when I speak to him, and he's visited me in hospital many times when I've been on my deathbed, and he's very normal and he hasn't lost the plot.
What I love about Tim Noakes is he loves to hear the opposite opinion. A little bit like in the investment world, and we're going to pick up on that in a moment, where Charlie Munger says, before you make an investment, the late Charlie Munger, then try and find out why you shouldn't make the investment. Same as his partner Warren Buffett says the same thing. And Tim says that's science. Science is try and find out where you're wrong. And I know from your life, you've also been very much on that kind of path, the questioning. Your book's amazing, Oscar. Why did you decide to write it?
That's a very good question. Interesting how some people handle some things. So on the 25th of November, 2019, I got given the news. You get that phone call and they say, Oscar, you've got 6 months to live. And the reason why I know that date, 25th of November 2019, is on the 26th of November was my wife's 60th, and I'd organized a special 60th birthday surprise. The only surprise she got is that I got cancer and I wasn't going to live very long. And it's interesting that, yes, I shed a tear. You have to. You like on your deathbed and you think about it. But I thought what I've done in my lifetime, not many people are going to do it. And I feel happy with myself. Lots of people just cry and say, oh, what am I going to do about nothing? And on the 29th of November, I phoned my friend. I said, Graham Spence, who I've known all my life, and he worked for the Daily News. So he covered all the stories of me winning things when I was very young. So we go back and he went to the Molokai. He met Tom Selleck. And I phoned him on the 29th. Never thought I was walking around the factory. He said, you won't believe it, Graham. I've got cancer, and they've given me 6 months to live. And he was also just about crying. He says, hey, I've got a big problem, Oscar. I'm on a deadline. It's going to take me 4 months to finish this deadline. I said, don't worry. They're giving me 6 months, but even then, I'm not going to last for only 6 months. And that's what I said. And I wanted this book to be different, to help people get through tough times. And as you know, after every chapter, I said, listen, these are the mistakes I made. This is what I learned. And you can learn from everyone. And when I'm doing motivational talks, I tell people they've got to find people that are positive, that can help you, because that's the only way you're going to get through life. Don't get through life with having negative people around you. That's why this book was there for people to read it 2 or 3 or 4 times. I've heard of people reading it 5 times and saying, sure, I need this little boost in my life, and that's what the book was about. It wasn't about telling me how good I was in my sport and business or anything. It was about helping other people. And that's what I've been doing all my life, coaching people, paddling, doing anything. And again, as I say, when I started, and in those days when I was at Citadel with Magnus and on your show, those years ago, 30 years ago, that I was always one of those people that, listen, I knew if I looked after my clients, they'd look after me. And that's been my life with people and friends and family. And I think that's important for everybody to learn.
That's Citadel's story. You cover it a little bit in the book. But I don't want you to I suppose, rake up old wounds and things like that. But you once you because you were one of the founders of Citadel, which is now a massive financial institution, as was Magnus. Now we know Magnus's story. He had a big fallout and he left. You left, but you also left financial services.
Yeah, it was interesting. And again, I can never get to the bottom of it, and I never bear grudges, as you see in my book. I don't care what happens, but again, everything I do it passionately, and I really give 100%. That I'm working 24/7 all the time, and no matter what business I'm in. And the same thing was with Citadel, and they sort of made when Jonathan wasn't Jonathan, and the guys made a sort of a decision not to worry about the up and coming people, the guys that are going to be wealthy in the future. And they just, and the rumors were that, I didn't have a degree and all this. And meantime, I knew what I was doing because I studied and did everything. So again, my loyalty is probably one of my biggest faults as well. Loyalty can be good things, but also bad thing. And I was so loyal because I'd put people into Citadel. I'd given all my clients, and I said, no, I'm going to stay with you. I still believe it is a good company. And as I say, as you know, that Andrew Muller, I actually appointed Andrew Muller, who's this current CEO, when he was in Durban. So, and I never run down people. And again, these are just things that happen in life. And I never quite knew what happened. And there's a few stories going around. But again, I don't bear grudges. I carry on and got out of the financial services, went into manufacturing boats and things like that, which is also a passion. Financial services is still a passion. If somebody asks me what I should do, I'll give them the correct answers. And I think that's something that I've always been. I've been too honest and too loyal, and maybe that was my shortcoming, because by rights, what I tell my customers and my clients is that if you can't actually make a difference in the company, rather leave the company. And I didn't. I left my shares in there and they went down, and obviously they came back up again. But I was faithful to the cause, and nobody can point fingers. That's why I didn't want to make it sort of picking up this old dirt about Citadel. It's a chapter in your life, move on, and that's what I say. Again, don't be too loyal, and don't be, as I say, it's difficult to just blind faith in people. You can't do that either.
Yeah, I like that. Don't let people rent space in your head. That's what resentment's all about, isn't it? But when you say you can't be too loyal, what do you mean by that?
Well, you see, I was loyal to the point that if I'd listened to my own belief, which is like, I'm leaving Citadel now, I haven't got control of it, I should have actually started selling my shares, and don't worry about all the other people that have invested in Citadel. I should have looked after myself and sold the shares when they were high, and I would have done well. Where I was saying, no, I'm in it. I put these people in it. I'm going down with you, and that's what I do. And I always do that, which is to a point. I think it's being too loyal. And even in my kayak business, the same thing. I give always too much, and I don't get as much better. And my wife always gets so frustrated because I'm always in 110%, and some people are in 80%, but I'm always 110%, which sometimes is a shortcoming. You don't see the wood for the trees.
In one part of your book as well, you talk about, I was there to win, or else I was wasting my time. I love that, because that's the Oscar Chalupsky I know, and it comes through so strongly in your athletic career. Which in itself, I suppose, because kayaking and canoeing is a little bit off the mainstream. If you'd stuck with rugby, say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, perfect example is that when I was in standard in matric at school, I said, if the rugby players got all the accolades. By this time, I'd already been in the national team. I'd won world championships and nothing, but I still didn't get any accolades. All the rugby players got it. So I said, okay, bugger you, I'm going to go and play rugby. And again, it doesn't come easy. I had to go and train very hard. And again, I set my goal completely off the charts, because nobody at Wessel Boys High even made Natal schools. I said, I'm going to make Natal schools. I didn't say I would make the first team. I wasn't even in the first team. I was a third team hacker. But I just set my mind to go to Natal schools. And then I trained like crazy, made sure I was fit. In those days, and remember, it's amateur. I was training 2 or 3 times a day. These rugby players were training 2 to 3 times a week. And it was a big difference. And again, I also set my mind and watched videos and watched things on rugby, and to make sure that I would achieve my goal. And that's what my whole life's been about. Everything I've done is to try and set a goal, make a plan of how to get to it, and achieve it. And some of them have been ridiculously difficult, and it takes a lot of sacrifice, which everybody has to make. And I think we all can do it. Everybody says, oh, no, you're special, winning so often. It's not being special. It's being that I've just got this ardent desire to win. And I try and win at everything.
And focus. Surely that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. No, you have to say anything, because it's so easy to get diverted to your chain of thought to change, and to go down different routes where I really like to focus and make sure, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And some people think I'm crazy. And what I also do, which is something that some people always hide about, they make their little goal, set their little goal, and they don't tell anybody. So when they fail, nobody even knows. Where I normally say, listen, I'm going to make Natal Schools rugby, so if I fail, I look bad. And I think that's one of those things, is to put yourself out there to make sure that you can actually achieve it and people know about it. And some people will help you, and a lot of people, this is the problem with life, a lot of people will hope that you fail. And I love beating the guys that think I'm going to fail,
To even get into the Natal School rugby team, though, you had to have some of the attributes, and you got that clearly from your parents. You got good genes. You're a big, strong boy, always have been. But it isn't just physically that you inherited. You also inherited a different mindset, perhaps, from your parents.
Yeah, my father came out of Germany. He's one of those people that says, if you're going to do something, do it properly or don't do it at all. So he's this German precision. So from the start, and again, it's like what made me so determined to win everything that I did. And it's from the start, I was big. So I was like nearly double the size of everybody when I was under 10. So everything came easy. I won everything because I was twice the size. Can't lose. Until I lost one race and realized a small guy with a big determination could beat you. And then from that day on, my father said, okay, we're going to go and train. We leave at 5:45 to be at the swimming pool at 6:00. He never pushed us. If you were in the car at 5:45, you went. And if you didn't get. He just went off. So you realized from that day on, if you want to do something, you've got to have the plan and you have to implement it and do it. And again, it's a lot of sacrifice, waking up so early as a youngster at under 10. And from that day on, after winning like the junior and senior Ironman, and funny enough, in Australia, surf lifesaving and paddling is the biggest sport, bigger than cricket or rugby. And when I won that in sort of March, and then another guy won it in April, I was like, I thought I was a big celebrity in South Africa. Meantime, the guy in Australia became a multi-millionaire and made a lot of money, where it's complete Cinderella sport in South Africa. So you had to make it yourself, So again, that takes a little bit of more effort, And I never forget Clive Rice, a good friend of mine, and they were looking at sponsorship, and they said, no, Clive Rice is one of the best people to sponsor because he's always loyal to a sponsor. And I was like number two, and I was in this Mickey Mouse sport, and he was in cricket. And it's interesting that even now that 95% of the people don't really know any other paddlers. They just know Oscar Chalupsky, the Chalupsky family, because I did it myself. Nobody was going to cover this sport because it's Cinderella sport, So, I mean, you look what I did in the doozy. I brought all the celebrities that the doozy community, the Mgani community would love to see, like the Baby Jakes, the Dr. Kamalos, the Peggy Sue Kamalos, all those. I brought them into the valley. Not only did it make them famous and make the race better, but it also brought me into the limelight. So you have to think outside the box all the time to get what you deserve, what I think I deserve.
And all of those stories are covered in your book. I didn't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. It's one of those books that you absorb it and enjoy it very much. But Oscar, where you are today, you've got this big battle going on, as you've shared with us earlier. You're 4 years into a disease that was supposed to take you after 6 months. What is it that you are going to be able to coach other cancer sufferers in? Or how would, if another, and I'm sure if I was diagnosed, the first guy I'm going to call is you and say to you, Oscar, how do I fight this thing? In the same way as if I was mad about kayaking, I would also phone you and get some insights.
Yeah, so I mean, it actually happens. I mean, every single day I get people, and it's terrible. I mean, I'm always signing books to say, keep fighting. And young kids, 26, people breaking their spines, all these things, they come to me all the time to say, how do we do it? And the first thing is, believing me, your mental strength is the most important thing, because it's so easy to fail when you are down and out. Believe me, when I was lying in that bed and the doctor was saying, no, you haven't got much chance, I still said, no, I've got this chance. I'm going to read up about, there must be some other ways. And you've always got to look at another way. There's always another way to do it better and braver. And the thing is to surround yourself and educate yourself. So I always say, listen, and I make effort. So when I heard about my disease, which is multiple myeloma, bone marrow cancer, there's no cure at the moment. And I was going along so happily, and it just shows you how you can be complacent in life, and you must never do this. I was going along and thinking, okay, well, this disease got no chance against me, and then suddenly it came back, and I was on my deathbed within 3 weeks. I mean, the doctor said they didn't know how I was surviving. So that just happened because I didn't have the special. I having it, but I didn't have it. I didn't feel I needed it. So it was like, oh, a week here and a week there is not going to make a difference. But it made a difference, so that I was basically back in stage 4 6 or 7 weeks ago. And then I fought it again by going to see a doctor all the way in Boston, a guy called Professor Thomas Seyfried, who said, listen, I'm going to give you one bit of advice. He's been studying biology for 41 years. And he said, let me tell you, all cancers are metabolic, because I thought mine wasn't metabolic. And what that basically means is that cancer lives off food, and they love carbohydrates, and all cancers do. Mine even less. So when I hear about a person that's got cancer, I say the first thing, you've got to clean up your act, because understand this, cancer is coming from what you're eating, and all the bad things like the stress and what you eat causes cancers. I mean, and it's terrible to see. And I get every single person coming to me saying, oh, this friend's got cancer, and this friend's got cancer. And invariably is stress and eating the wrong stuff. That's 90% of the cancers out there, So that's why when I do a 21-day fast, I knew that this is going to kill this cancer. And it did, because they gave me no chance. And then suddenly it started working, and it worked twice as fast as anybody else on the same treatment as me. So it shows you. But again, I'd educated myself about this. And as I say, this Professor Thomas Seyfried. And that's the biggest pity I find with big pharma and food companies, is they're not going to tell you the truth. Because it's interesting, if I fast, who's going to make money out of this? Nobody. So if you're not making money, nobody's interested, which makes me very frustrated. And I see why it's difficult for people. I mean, breast cancer, and I had 5 bouts of the red devil. And again, number one, everybody says, oh, it makes you sick. It made me nothing, because I fasted before. It didn't do anything to me. So understand, I've done all of these things. I've practiced what I've preached, and I keep on researching. I'm always researching and reading and listening to books all the time. So I'm always doing like 2 or 3 or 4 books every month. And I think that's what helps. And I think that's what people, and I always say it's my talk, the one thing that's happening to all of us is we're getting older, correct? 100% correct. But the one thing we can do is get cleverer. The older we get, the cleverer we should get. But so many people stop learning. They think you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can, because you just keep learning and improving. And that's what life's about. And you must make life even get better and better. And the only way to do is education.
Brilliant insights there. Is there anything, though, just to close off with, that you've also learned in your voyage of discovery against cancer that you can share with us? And I say this because a very good friend of ours who had pancreatic cancer, which again is also not incurable, she lasted far longer than was anticipated. She has passed away. But in her case, she found that cannabis was a great help to her. Have you tried things like that? Something off the charts?
Yeah, it's off the charts. And again, I did all my research on cannabis, and it didn't do much for me, because what cannabis does for you, for a lot of people, is number one, take the stress. I mean, I've got like a group of multiple myeloma guys that did the mushrooms, the magic mushrooms, which actually helped them all. But again, I just don't need all this stuff, because I feel like I've got it under control. So understand, and this is where it's not different. Everybody handles things differently. I handle the way it's just being positive. Like people, Joe Dispenza says, go and meditate. I said, no, I'll rather go for a paddle, and that's better meditation for me, and I feel fit and healthy. So you've got your own different ways of handling it. Like a lot of people did the medical marijuana for sleep, and then for anxiety and things like that. So there's always different ways. So don't believe my way is the only way. But the most important thing that I've learned is that it's very important to have a lot of support around you all the time, because you are going through tough times, and you've got to have support and realize, I always talk about, and this is little bit of a business lesson, is that in my phone, I've got 8,700 contacts, and I still keep every single one. And I'm always there. You know, Alec, you can phone up the thing and say, listen, I've got a cancer, and I will answer. And I'm always replying to everybody. And there's thousands of people that have got cancer, and I do it. And I'm there. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm here to help people overcome the odds. And I mean, the other day I had a thing where the guy said, no, I'm fighting depression, but your book helped me fight depression. And I'm so happy that that happened, you know. So people go through these tough times, and I'm there to help them. And again, I've been through it, which I don't like doing it, you know. So it's a tough thing. And my wife always says, oh, you're dealing with people that are always sick, and they're always coming to you say, oh, and I lose friends. Like 2 weeks ago, I met a person in Tasha's in Constantia, and she was fighting. I said, oh, keep it, do this. And then the brother messaged, she died 2 weeks later. But I tried everything I could. You know, the friends bought the book, you know. So it is tough, you know. When you've got cancer, it is tough, and it is a bit stressful. But I'm just so positive. I just think all these people, I'm going to learn from everybody out there, and hopefully they can learn from me as well. And as I say, networking, keep that support. Yes, social media is supposed to be bad, but let me tell you, social media can uplift you a lot if you've got that kind of support that are helping you all the time and pushing you through.
Oscar Chalupsky, I'm privileged to be one of those thousands of friends over many, many years. It's been a privilege knowing you, and speaking today has been very uplifting in the same way as your book has. And I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.
Thank you very much, Alec.